Hello everyone, welcome to the part 2B of the RTS tutorial series. Now on this part, we'll be creating the gridless base building system. This is easier than the grid-based base building system since it's not really basing its position on the grid. Now you can place your buildings anywhere you want, you can rotate it however you want. This is also the system that is used in the Command and Conquer games. So without further ado, let's go to the tutorial. First, we're gonna create a C# script and let's name it as gridless building system. Let's open it up with MonoDevelop. Now on MonoDevelop, let's remove the void start method. Now the variables for this are just the same as the raycast building system, like this one. Let's just copy it and then paste it here. But on this one, we're gonna add 3 more variables. First is the game object. Now this is the game object that is gonna record if you already placed a building. Let's name it as built object. Now on top, before we can create the other variable, we need to create an enum. Now an enum contains a list of enumeration. So I'm not gonna discuss more on it. I'm just gonna show you how to use and create it. So first, this is how you declare an enum. Then the identifier of the enum. Let's call it as cursor state. On this one, you won't be putting equal. You're gonna be placing brackets in it. And then on the inside of the brackets, we'll be adding a list, or let's say the state. So I'm gonna add building, and then let's separate it with a comma. And then I'm gonna add rotating. And that's it. You don't have to put any semicolon then. So now to use it, we'll just simply create a variable, public cursor state, the identifier. Let's just call it as state. And the way you declare the value of it is by calling the enum again, the cursor state dot whatever is listed on the list. I'm just gonna select building. Alright, now let's move on to the void update method. Now most of the functions of this is just the same as the raycast. We'll just copy it, paste it, and then change some things here. I'm just gonna remove this debug.log. So in here, we'll remove this mapf.round, all of it, as well as change this int into float. There. Don't forget to change this int into a float since we're comparing it on the condition, and that will give us some errors, as well as on this one, in this tree declaration. I almost forgot to change this to last pause x, last pause y, and last pause z. Clearly, most of the functions are gonna start happening on this part. So instead of just calling for a mouse button down, we'll simply change it to a get mouse button. Now what this means is whenever you're holding the mouse down, it's still inputting an action. Alright, now below, let's add this brackets since it's gonna be a long if statement. Now on this one, let's create an if statement and let's call the state. We're just gonna check if it's equals to cursor state dot building. Now if it's equal to cursor state dot building, we'll do something for the object. Now we'll put this instantiate statement into a game object. So whenever it's instantiating an object, we can call it through this script. So to do this, we'll just simply create game object and then the identifier of it, building, is equals to instantiate blah blah blah. Now before this works, you need to cast it. Now casting on this one is just like the same on the int. Let's just call it game object. Or you can also cast it just like this as game object. But any of them works just the same. Now below, we're gonna call our built object and the value of it will be the building, the instantiated object. Now we're gonna change the state into cursor state dot rotating. Alright, and below, we'll create another if statement. State is equals to cursor state dot rotating. Now we're just gonna add one statement on this one. Built object that transform that look at new vector tree, last pause x. Now on the y-axis, we're not gonna really rotate it on the y-axis. We're just gonna let it rotate on the x and z axis. That would be built object that transform that position that y. And then on the z axis, let's just put it as last pause z. Close it with 2 parentheses. Now below this if statement again, this big one, we're gonna create an if statement and then let's call input at get mouse button up. So what it does is whenever you let go of the mouse click, it will send out an action that you've let go of the left click. So what we'll be doing here is clear out the value of the built object and then return the state into building or cursor state into building. So that would be built object is equals to null and the gridless state equals cursor state dot building. Let's save that up. Let's try it out on Unity. On the main camera, let's disable the raycast building system. Let's add the gridless building system, and then let's set it up. So the mask would be everything except the cursor. The object to move is the cursor, and the object to place would be the cube, the prefab. Let's save it and let's test it out. As you can see, it's not snapping into the grid anymore, or our virtual grid. So whenever we click it and drag it, it's rotating to wherever our mouse is positioned at, right there. Now, this is the way how base building works on the Command and Conquer series, like the 0R and so on. We'll be using this throughout the tutorial series, but you can still use the raycast building system whenever you want. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!